Right mindfulness, samasati. Right mindfulness is, as the literal definition of mindfulness suggests, a person's awareness of themselves and surroundings, and the Pali word sati translates to recollection. While the practice of mindfulness is not exclusive to Buddhism, it is a very fundamental part of it. To understand right mindfulness, it is also necessary to understand the four factors that go into it: Kaya, Vedana, Siddha, and Dhamma, which translates to body, sensation, heart and mind, and cosmic law respectively. To understand all four factors, one must go through a great amount of self-reflection in order to determine if their thoughts and sensations are derived from any sort of negativity, and omit it entirely, as well as develop an awareness of things, oneself, others, and reality. Awareness of things is the awareness of everything materialistic within the environment. However, it is not just being alert of one's surroundings. It's being aware and intrigued enough to observe with all senses and find beauty within it. Awareness of oneself is the awareness of one's body and changes from within. This includes bodily movements, positions, and emotions. A common starting point of meditating would be to first develop the physical aspect of oneself, and then focus on developing awareness for their mind afterwards. Awareness of others is to avoid jumping to conclusions, or judging a person without properly knowing who they are as a person. Lastly, awareness of reality is, in a way, enlightenment itself. It is the perception of everything unclouded by bias. Developing mindfulness heavily involves meditation, which allows a person to see three things. It allows the person to be reminded of what their task at hand is and to refocus on it. For example, if the task at hand was to write a book, meditating would allow the writer to cure writer's block and refocus on their book. Next, it allows a person to see things as they should be perceived, meaning unbiased by any sort of past experiences. Lastly, it allows one to see everything as imperfect, temporary, and egoless. In achieving all of this, he or she will become more focused on their surroundings, as well as their own selves, becoming more present and have a less wandering mind. Practicing right mindfulness is not a simple, quick, and easy task, however. It takes a great amount of time and concentration to change life habits, even if training starts from a young age. Right mindfulness essentially calls for each person to develop a mindset very contrary to what the rest of the world has. Right concentration. Samasamadhi. Right concentration centers around the four stages of dhyana. By practicing right concentration and achieving each stage of dhyana, a person is able to feel or experience Buddhist teachings most directly. In the first stage of dhyana, all feelings of passion, desire, and any unhonorable thoughts are abandoned, and only feelings of euphoria and self-consciousness remain. In the second stage, the ability to think critically disappears. By losing that ability, one is able to feel unnerved and therefore calmer, in addition to the emotions left from the first stage. In the third stage, any overwhelming feelings are replaced by complete calmness and balance, called upekkha in Sanskrit. In the fourth and final stage of dhyana, all emotions and momentary sensations disappear, and the person is left with complete calmness and balance. There's a multitude of practices to develop a person's concentration and prepare their mind for when they reach enlightenment. In developing concentration, they also develop mindfulness, which is very commonly mistaken as meditation. However, that is not the case. In the Nichiren school, students concentrate on chanting and powerful meditation, but the most popular type of meditation is when the meditator focuses one's attention on a sole object. Through this type of meditation, they can calm their body and slow down the traffic from within their minds. This is called single-pointed concentration. Right understanding, samadhi. Right understanding is arguably one of the biggest keys to understanding Buddhism. Because right understanding centers around the acceptance of the three categories of dukkha. Du meaning difficult, and ka meaning empty. The first category is dukkha dukkha, which roughly translates to suffering or pain. This encompasses all sorts of suffering, ranging from physical pain to emotional pain. For example, aging, birth, sickness, death, failure to protect what's important, and any feelings from undesirable outcomes are all examples of dukkha dukkha. The second category is viparinama dukkha, the suffering of change, which is the sadness that comes from knowing that any kind of happiness can be lost or taken away, no matter what kind of setting one may live in, whether in this universe or not. Nothing can remain forever, and it is bound to the changes of its environment. Pleasurable emotions are fleeting, and anything that is alive will eventually die off. The third category is sankhara dukkha, or the all-pervasive suffering of conditioning. This is the most discreet, yet most present form of suffering, and is typically caused by arrogance, anger, pride, and greed. This all-pervasive suffering is described as the suffering that comes from just being alive. It is the suffering of never being quite satisfied with one's surroundings and environment, no matter how luxurious it may be. By taking all this suffering into consideration, one can understand that life is full of all sorts of dukkha. And in learning and accepting that all happiness is temporary, one can be liberated from holding expectations that can potentially lead to disappointment. The moral of right understanding is that there is no point in pursuing something that has the potential to harm oneself. Right intention, samma sankappa. When Siddhartha was meditating under the Bodhi tree, he found that all his emotions could be divided into two categories. He put desires, ill will, and harmfulness in one category that would turn him away from nirvana, and renunciation, goodwill, and harmlessness into the other that would turn him towards nirvana. Right intention is described by the Buddha in three parts. The first being the intention of renunciation, which counters the intentions of desire.